Hello everyone, welcome back. Let's play some chess, shall we? Okay, we're here on chess.com again. Let's see what we can do. All right, so I think 5 minutes should be fine. Let's see who we get. We have N4558, rated 655. Let's go with our standard E4. And he decides to go for a French defense, an opening that I do not recommend, but I guess if you know the plans and ideas, should be fine. So typically they'll go for some d5, and then it will be white to decide what kind of game he wants. Okay, so this b6 is going to transpose into other kind of opening that I am a little bit familiar with. And I like to play this bishop to d3, so that after bishop b7, my pawn on e4, it's already protected. Now in some variations, they like to play knight to a6, followed by some c5. So we're going to prevent the knight to a6 line by playing queen to e2. Okay, so he goes for a6, and we're just going to develop our pieces normally by playing knight to f3, putting more pressure and protection to our center squares and center pawns. So our opponent just decided to play a very committal move with f6. And I think this is a very important time to just think for a couple of seconds and see how we can approach this position, since now there's going to be some weaknesses on the light squares around his king. I don't want to push this pawn up too early, since then not only does it open up his bishop, but he can actually close the king side with f5. So instead, I am just going to castle, put my king in safety, and give him the move. Now, this is a little bit different. Now, he has created definitely a lot of weaknesses around his king. So I think this is the important time to catch in the center. But how? How is the main question. Okay, let's throw in some d5. If he plays e5 here, I think it's going to be very beneficial for us. Notice how his king is going to be lacking protection along the light squares. And this bishop back to c8. Notice that if we take everything away from this position, it almost looks as if black has only made pawn moves. All his original pieces are in the starting squares. So this cannot be good for him. And I can already see the loss of a rook with queen to h5 check. His only move is to go king e7, after which we have two options. We can go knight to g6, check, winning the rook, or you can pause the video and see if you can find the best move in this position. All right, so the best move is going to be what we're actually going to play in this game, and it's going to end up in a very pretty mate for ourselves. So let's go with queen to h5 check. Let's see how our opponent decides to play this. He can either go g6 and prevent the checkmate one more move, for one more move, or he can simply just go king e7, after which we're going to go knight f5, and the game is over. So let's take a quick look at the game report and see where things went wrong for our opponent. I think we play pretty standard. And we can see that our accuracy was 97.8. We made one inaccurate move. Not sure where that was, so let's take a quick peek at the analysis. So e4, e6, d4, b6, bishop bishop d3, bishop b6, bishop b7, I mean. And it's saying that our mistake came in this position where we played the move d5. It's saying that that was not the best continuation. It's saying that we should have played knight to h4, which is something I had thought of originally. But I thought that allowing him to play the move to e5 was going to be a lot stronger, since now the square on f5 was going to be weak. And it ended up being correct for us, since after he played the move to e5, we were able to take advantage of knight to h4 here instead. So I don't think it was a major inaccurate move, but okay. We will deal with it. All right, so let's move on to another game. Let's see. Play. Where, okay, so here, new game. Okay, so we again have the white pieces. Let's try something. Nah, let's continue with my favorite king's pawn opening. All right, so I have a question for everybody. How do you guys do your chess training? What is it that you do? Do you do tactics mainly? Do you mainly do openings? Do you do a combination of things? How do you approach chess on the daily basis? Okay, so far we're playing a very standard king's pawn opening where my minor pieces have been developed, and I put my king to safety, and my opponent has done something very similar. So I can already tell that he has a lot of experience in this kind of positions here. Although I do not agree with the assessment of this move, I can just take a free pawn, and that's exactly what we're going to do. And I'm actually going to take it with the bishop, forcing him to have to take, and I don't have to ruin my own pawn structure. But I did give him the bishop pair. But now it looks like I can take yet another pawn. So my opponent is playing some very weird moves at the moment, I must say. So the way I approach every chess position, not chess position, but a typical day of chess, I like to start out my day by doing some tactics and then have some kind of plan. Always working in an opening. And at this stage of my chess life, I guess, I just work on the openings that I like. I don't try to understand every opening out there like I did at the beginning. Now I just, if I want to do Sicilian, I just do Sicilian for a certain amount of hours. I do tactics for a certain amount of hours. And I always like to end the day by going over the most important chess endgames, especially the rook endgames. Okay, so here my opponent is attacking my knight on e5, but I can play this move, which both attacks his bishop and protects my knight. And he decided that he does not care. He decided he doesn't care about it. Here we have a lot of options, believe it or not. Lots of options. But I think taking on c7 is the best out of all of them. Notice that my opponent is playing extremely fast and he's making a lot of mistakes. So when you're playing chess, just take your time. There's no reason to rush the game. I could have taken the rook, but then he would have just taken here on e5, or maybe taken my knight. So instead, I'm just gonna go back and see if we somehow can take advantage of the fact that his pieces are hanging. So by playing knight back, I mean to c4, we were threatening to capture his bishop after he moved the queen. Well, he completely missed the fact that his queen was hanging. So we're just going to take it. And from here, the game was already pretty simple, but now it's going to be even more favorable. So we're simply going to capture his knight, and this shouldn't be too complicated to finish. We're going to put some support. Knights in the center are usually good. I noticed that by playing this move to b3, we're simply going to play the bishop on b2 and attack checkmate there. So this is just going to be another free piece. Not sure what my opponent is thinking about. But all right, so he protected against the checkmate. We're simply going to play f3, ask him where he wants to go with his bishop. We'll go back. Here we're going to play king to g3. I notice that there's not much my opponent can do here. It's just a matter of time before this game is over. So now we have the open H file, which is going to put some extra added pressure on my opponent. Notice that if bishop to f7, knight to e7 would have been checkmate. And that's what we're going to go for. We're going to try to play f5, force my opponent to put his bishop on that square. And by playing this move, my opponent falls for another checkmate on g7. Okay, again, let's see if we can learn anything from this game. Besides the fact that our opponent went completely wrong out of the opening by giving us some free pawns, after which the position was very difficult for him to play. Wow, 44.1 accuracy. I must say I'm very surprised. I am very surprised that that is the case. That has to be some of the lower accurate games I have ever played on chess.com so far. Okay, so let's go to the analysis. Let's see where we went wrong. So typical stuff. It's saying that we should have taken the pawn, but in my experience, taking the pawn it's a bit dangerous. So I don't see why the moves that I play are incorrect. Okay, so we're gonna start from here because I don't think the moves that I played are inaccurate at all. Maybe there are some better moves, but my moves were fine. After d5, it's a whole pawn for free. It's saying that I should take with the knight, but I thought that if we take with the knight, he simply just takes this one. So that's what I didn't like. That's why I played bishop to takes d5. So now I can just be up a pawn for no reason, and my pawn structure is fine. So after queen to d7, which is a major mistake because we just simply capture another pawn. Everything standard so far. Obviously, this is a mistake. It's saying that I should have taken the knight, and I thought about it, but I thought, why not take a pawn here? Okay, the moves that the computer is saying are inaccurate. Do not spoil our precision whatsoever. So let's just play another game. Since this one from here, it's a very standard, simple finish. All right, so let's get another 5-minute game in. And we're playing Marcoca with the black pieces, rated 550. All right, so let's play a Sicilian defense in this game. My opponent has gone for e4. And check out this move, queen to h5. He wants to deliver some checkmate on f7. Maybe he doesn't realize that I know this. All right, let's just play normal things and see how he decides to continue. I am going to place a huge bet on bishop to c4. And I would have lost the bet. So my opponent goes for this move, e5. And he's probably going to end up losing that pawn after this move. Although he can go queen to e2. But that's going to be good for us if he goes queen to e2. After which we're just going to continue to develop our pieces. But since he went there, we can simply now just capture the pawn. And now that we're up a pawn, you guys know what I like to do. I simply just simplify or try to simplify. That way, when all the pieces are taken off the board and I'm up the extra pawn, we can convert our advantage into a queen. Okay, so obviously he's putting some pressure on the pawn, so I had to protect with bishop to g7. My opponent also played a very risky maneuver by playing his queen here so early. Now notice that he opened up this diagonal where he wants to put this bishop here and keep putting pressure on my pawn. But I think he missed the fact that my bishop is also attacking his rook right now. So if I push this pawn forward, I will be attacking the knight and I will be attacking the rook. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to obviously sacrifice this pawn, but if he takes it, we're going to take his rook for free. So he should not take this pawn, obviously, but it's going to be very hard for him to save both his knight and the rook. So he's going to have to give something away. So what's going to be his best continuation? I'm not so sure. I already like our game very much. It should be an easy conversion from here. And we're probably going to get a resignation pretty soon. I don't think our opponent will continue playing much after this. But okay, he decided to take the pawn, and we're going to take his rook. From here, the plan is just to bring my bishop back, develop my knight to f6, castle, and ask him what he wants to do from there after he's going to be down a full rook. Marcoca has gone wrong. Okay, so knight to e5. I think this is his plan, to go bishop to b7, but that doesn't scare me. I mean bishop to b5, sorry. So after knight to f6, he should continue with his plan. And whatever I block on d7 with, then he should move his queen out the way. Maybe to e2. And okay, so he gave me this check, and I don't think that was the right way to go, since now I'm going to force some pieces off the board. So after bishop to d7, if he goes bishop b5, I simply just capture his knight. And here we can play queen takes, and well, he just captured right away, so he didn't let me explain the move. But if he had gone bishop to b5, we simply play knight to c6. No problems. Here we're simply going to take, and we're going to follow that up by getting our bishop out of here. Now we're simply just up a full rook. So let's castle, put our king to safety, finish our development, and continue from here. Notice that this move is really not threatening much. So we're simply going to kick this knight out. If he goes to c3, we'll take it off the board and trade yet another piece, which is what we are trying to accomplish. All right, I don't mind trading at this moment. So let's continue. Okay, so knight here with this threat, trying to trade another one. So we'll pre-move. If bishop takes, we can take with the rook right away. But now that just gives us another rook here, which we're going to also pre-move. Okay, so our opponent decided enough is enough. Okay, give me. Okay, so let's move on to checking the game. I don't expect this one to be as low as 44.7 accuracy. All right, this is more likely what I expected, somewhere on the range that I'm used to. So okay, no, the main thing is that we're making no blunders and we're making no mistakes. Sometimes inaccurate moves can be played as long as they don't ruin your advantage. But in this case, everything worked out. We had no inaccuracies, no mistakes, and no blunders. And that's what I like to see. Let's take a quick, rapid look at the analysis and let's see where my opponent went wrong. So queen h5, my opponent is saying, the computer is saying it's a good move, but I totally disagree. You should never, and listen to this, you should never bring your queen out too early. It leads to disasters in most of the times. So okay, we continue with normal development and e5. And I thought this move was an inaccurate move, although the computer is saying that it's fine. But you can already see that we have a huge advantage, almost a whole pawn advantage, as the computer is giving us a minus 0.89 advantage. Which, if you're playing with the black pieces, and on move 3 you already have this kind of advantage, that just means that white went completely wrong in the opening. So okay, g6, asking the queen where it wants to go. And here I believe that the only way to keep the pawn was to go queen to e2. But since my opponent went queen h4, we simply just took the pawn for free. And from here on, the game was just an easy conversion. The only thing that we should notice that we're going to talk about here is his next mistake, which is the big blunder in the game. Like, he was already up down a pawn, but now he's just down a full rook. So there's not much to talk about from this moment forward. So let's just go and get another game in. Okay, not a game report. I want a 5-minute game. All right, so here we are with the white pieces again. So let's go for our beloved pawn to e4. And here we have a new opening that no one has yet to play against us, the Scandinavian defense. And it comes as no surprise, since look where our opponent is from. So, all right, we'll just continue with this line. And after pawn takes, I think I want to be a little ambitious and play for some gambits. That way we can have some quick development of our pieces. And we can attack. So let's see if he plays bishop g4. And our opponent didn't. Good for him. Okay, we're going to castle. Notice that we have very good development. We have very good control of the center. So this should give us some kind of advantage, I guess. Okay, never bring out your queen too early. It gives us an opportunity to keep attacking. So knight to b5. I'm expecting the queen to retreat or queen to b4. If queen to b4, we're simply going to play queen to e2, protecting our bishop. I'm going to follow that up with pawn to to c3. And then the pawn on c7 is hanging, which is what we're going to target in this position. We're going to play bishop f4 and keep putting pressure on this pawn here. So this is a big mistake in my opinion, since now it's going to be quite difficult for him actually. So let's see, what is the best way to go? Okay, I don't think there's anything wrong with taking here with check. Now comes a big moment. I'm not exactly sure what to do here, but it has to be this move. Bishop to b5. His knight was attacking our bishop, so I didn't want to take the rook. If rook takes, knight would have captured my bishop, and I don't think that was the best. But now we put our bishop out the way, we attack his queen, and when the queen moves, like it did here, then we can simply capture his rook. We also have this move on tap, bishop to c7, which is almost going to be a checkmate. He's going to have to sacrifice his queen for it. So this game is looking lovely at the moment. So our opponent missed that, so we're going to go for it. Bishop c7 check. His only move is to go queen takes, so we're going to pre-move knight takes c7, since he has no other moves other than queen takes. And now it's simply just a matter of conversion. So yeah, let's just move our pawns forward. I'm not sure what he intends to do. If he wants to play bishop takes, we'll take it. Why not? So he took there. My opponent is not exactly playing the best at the moment. So here, the reason knight to e3 didn't work is because after we move our queen out of the way, notice that this knight is hanging. And after he takes our rook, we can simply take his knight here first with check. And obviously that move doesn't bother us because we can just simply take it. And then we can take his precious knight. Assuming there's no checkmates. So we have knight check. I think we might have a checkmate instead. So, okay, our opponent decided to resign the game. So let's take a quick look at the game report, just so that we can see where we went wrong. All right, so not bad, no inaccuracies, no mistakes, no blunders. Always what I like to see. So let's see what the analysis says. Let's see if our opponent, let's learn from our opponent in this game. Okay, so normal stuff, bishop c4, e6. And just notice, by sacrificing a pawn, look at the beautiful position that we actually achieved in this game. All our pieces are developed, except for obviously our bishop on c1, but that's the reason why I played the move to d4, was just to develop that bishop. But every other piece is developed and in some way or form doing something in the center. So after knight to c6, we simply played the move to d4, and we prepare to take out our bishop. And queen to d6 is the computer saying it's a good move, but I disagree. I think he should have completed his development by playing bishop to d6 or even bishop to e7 and then castle. So after queen to d6, it gives us an opportunity to continue to put pressure. And notice here that not only the idea was to play knight b5, but now when the queen moves, we can take out our bishop and attack on the pawn on c7, which is pretty much giving us an extra tempo, a free tempo in the position. So queen to d7, and we take out our bishop with tempo, attacking the pawn now on c7, so he needs to do something about that. And, all right, so knight a5 was a big blunder. From here, he just loses the entire house. So not only did we take the rook, but you saw how easily the game continued, and he had to sacrifice his queen. Okay, so there's nothing to look at in there. So let's go and play a new game. So new 5-minute game. Okay, so we have Lekrivin 624. So, okay, so he decided to go for queen's pawn opening with d4. All right, so we prevented with knight f6 from him to playing his pawn to e4. and we're going to keep doing that. We're going to make sure that we have our share of the center. And our opponent is playing very logical moves. He is opting for a London system, which I recommend for most beginner players because it's a very easy setup to remember. You simply bring your bishop to f4, your knight to f3, this pawn here, put the other knight there, the bishop comes to d3, and you can pretty much do this in any order and your position will be fine. So here he took our pawn on c5, which was probably not in his best interest, since he removed one of his we removed one of his center pawns for one of our flank pawns. And he's going to try now to keep this pawn on that he captured, which at the moment he's just up a pawn. So he's preparing to go b4. Notice that at the moment before was not possible because we simply just take it off the board. But we're going to prevent him from playing this move anyway by playing a5 ourselves. And next what I want to do is just simply to play my pawn to e6 and capture here with my bishop. I notice that there isn't anything that he can do. So with this move, what he really wants to play is bishop to b5, at which point he can play b4. But he's a move behind. So if he plays bishop b5 now, we take the pawn. And we don't worry about a thing. So already, I believe we have equalized. And then when you're playing with the black pieces, that's what you should attempt to do in every game. First, equalize, and then go for the advantage or winning the game. Unless your opponent makes a huge blunder out of the opening, in which case you just take complete advantage of it. So moving here is a move that, yes, it makes sense, but I don't understand it. I don't know. He's not really threatening to take my pawn on f7, I don't think. And if he takes my knight on c6, I simply capture it back. So it looks to me like just a waste of a move. He should have just developed his bishop or developed his other knights. And we're going to ignore it since he's not really threatening anything. And his only threat here is now to play bishop to b5. After which I'm going to set a small trap. If he plays bishop to b5, we're simply going to castle kingside. And if he decides to capture everything here on c6, I have some queen b6 at the end, which threatens the pawn on b2. But now that I think about it a bit closer, he can actually go knight takes instead of bishop takes. I was only considering bishop takes first, but he can go knight takes, pawn takes, bishop takes, and then my rook will be attacked. So after then I don't really have good squares for my rook since this bishop is controlling this square here. Okay, so notice that my center has greatly improved by what he's done. I have more pawns in the center than he does. I have more space in the center than he does. So I'm not sure what my opponent is trying to do. Okay, so this move is logical. He is tempting me to take so he can develop his bishop in one go, but we're not going to do that. We already have more pawns in the center than our opponent. So if he decides to take that one, we simply capture with the c pawn, and we will have a pawn majority on the king side and a better control of the center. Okay, so this move is very, very strange, I must say. What is he thinking about? Here we have some things that I'm considering. Knight to e4 followed by bishop b4 should be very strong. Not to mention, this is going to open my queen to go to h4 in some positions as well. So I'm not exactly sure why my opponent played this move. It is a thematic move in some situations in this kind of London systems, but you have to have better development and better piece placement. Here, I don't agree that this is the best that my opponent could have achieved. So we're gonna go for the plan that I had mentioned with bishop to b4 check. So let's see what my opponent decides to do. He should fully continue with king to f1. After which, we're here guessing, looking for a move after he plays king to f1. The truth is, I really wanted to play bishop to a6, but I couldn't make it work. And here now, he simply just loses a piece. So we're going to take with check. And when he moves, we'll move our bishop out the way. So now the game is pretty simple. We simply go back, and if he wants to trade on e4, we will accept the trade. Since we are at this moment up material. Here, bishop back, nothing to worry about. So it's hard to keep commenting on this game, considering the fact that our opponent has given us a free piece so early in the game. So we're just going to continue with the same plan that I always do when I go material. Simplify. Simplify. And the extra piece is going to have something to say in the endgame. So here, it's hard to find moves for our opponent. We're going to play bishop a6. Notice this pawn is pinned. And if he plays b3, we're simply going to go knight takes b3. Since queen takes b3 is going to lead to bishop c4 check. And he's going to have to sacrifice his queen. So he's going for this. And as the pawn takes, I'm expecting a resignation here. Okay, our opponent's not resigning just yet, but shouldn't take long. Okay, so rook to c1. Okay, let's just give him a quick check, followed by bishop takes on a3. And he's also running down on time, so not much to worry about here. So after this check, we're simply going to offer him a rook trade, which he kindly accepts. And that is, I'm just going to make a move, but he's playing some very interesting moves. I totally missed, we had this queen check as well. So the computer is going to say we made lots of inaccuracies, but it's fine. We're going to take that. We're trying to take the bishop. We're trying g5. So, okay, we have a resignation by our opponent. We have brought our rating up to 651. And let's take a quick report at this last game. And I don't think it's going to be a very accurate game. I think we're going to be in the 80s. I think the game was a bit sloppy at the end. Yeah, and we did miss a win, and I'm pretty sure that's what it was. And we made 3 inaccurate moves. But considering the game was very lopsided, sometimes you lose the thread, and yeah, so it is what it is. Well, I want to thank everybody for watching, and if you enjoyed this video and would like to see more of them, don't forget to like and subscribe and hit the bell so you can be notified when new videos are uploaded. And also, if you find the concepts useful, share this material with a friend so that they can also learn and improve. And as always, stay safe and always show respect to your opponents. See you next time.